Hi everyone, Sean Healy, change agent here and relationship consultant, and you're watching the Relationship Resourcing Series, a series designed to support people in having better quality business and personal relationships. So welcome to this episode. This is part 2 of adult children raised by narcissists. So welcome to this particular episode. If you haven't seen the one before, I would certainly encourage you to do so, but I'm sure you will be able to follow along with this particular episode. And even though there's 2 episodes in here, there is so much in this very complex and painful field. But I thought I'd just talk about a few of the symptoms that adult children of narcissists can face, because the child was raised in a system by one or both parents who had to cling on to their specialness at all costs. What this meant is that certain strategies are employed, certain psychological defenses, so that I keep attached to my false sense of specialness. And then this has some significant consequences to children who are trying to navigate and survive, raised in a system like that has very little empathy, has very little attention or nurture on them, and very little emotional attunement. And if you were raised in that kind of system, my deepest sympathy to you. And it's a road, but you can heal, recover, and claim yourself as an adult, and you know, because it can become, our relationships as an adult can become mystifying, they can become overwhelming, because we're dealing with hypervigilance, confusion. One of the ways in which we might have survived our family system, because we couldn't physically leave, is we mentally left, we checked out. And so we might find that we're still doing that. We find difficulty staying present in adult conversations. We are oversensitive, we can be easily overwhelmed, we can be on eggshells all the time when dealing with people, and hypervigilant, and that takes time to recover from those things. Some of the things that we do, one is that because your sense of your individual self, because your parent was so fragile, any sign of the child stepping into their own power or autonomy would most likely have had to have been crushed or cut short. So what this means is that the child learns very quickly that it's not safe to be themselves, and they learn to what's called power shedding, that self-power shedding actually. We learn that the way to survive is to give our power over to others. That's how we survive as a child. But then what happens as an adult is we find that we can't stop doing that. We can't stop giving all our power away in dynamics. We can't stop people invading our boundaries. We end up energetically exhausted. We end up financially exhausted because we're giving away our time. We're giving away our power. We're giving away our finances. And we're finding all these amazing ways to devalue and disempower self, because we got so good at it as a child, because it was the only way we could survive. And so we have to start learning how to reclaim our authenticity and reclaim our strength. One of the challenges that we'll face the moment we start to do that is, because we spent so little time being allowed to honor and discover who we were, it can be completely baffling and mystifying at first to try to figure out who we are, and in particular how we hold on to ourselves in relation to being close to others. Because if we learn to survive by enmeshing or distancing completely, or doing a combination of the two, then we've got very little reference for true connection and true intimacy, especially when we're coming from our individuated sense of self. And it can end up being truly terrifying to allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to be present with another, where in the past what vulnerability meant was to be crushed, because we were with parents who couldn't empathize, couldn't attune. We might have had one strongly narcissistic parent and another parent that was so wounded and so undifferentiated themselves that they were simply unable to stand up and champion us. And so what this could mean as an adult is that our only way to deal with our family system is either to chop them off and have nothing to do with them, or we'll find often that we end up completely still enmeshed in the system. The system is toxic and not helpful to us, yet we still find that we cannot not spend a lot of time in that system, or we'll oscillate backwards and forwards between the two. And we grow up with this sense of feeling chronically that we're not enough and we can never do enough. And we need to be able to find ways to really connect with our enoughness and to honor and validate self. And one of the things that needs to be challenged there that sometimes happens is if we enter into polarity with a parent. So let's say, for example, that one of the things that supports the narcissistic, highly fantastical self-identity is this sense of positive grandiosity, that anything that good that happens in the world is because of me, and anything that's bad is your fault or somebody else's. It never, I'm never to blame, but I am the first to, and I won't take responsibility for anything because that might expose me, but I will definitely grab all the credit for everything that goes right. So if we have a parent on that side of the polarity, what that means is somebody else has to take up the other side of the seesaw, and that is often the child of the narcissistic parent, who goes into, while the parent has the positive grandiosity, the child takes up the negative grandiosity. And so what this means is that the child comes away, they take power out of being completely powerless. They become special in the idea that they are so unlovable and so unspecial. I'm the only person in the world who's so toxic and so wrong and putrid that, of the billions of people on the planet, I'm the only one who doesn't deserve to be in relationship, or certainly doesn't deserve anything good in relationship. And, anything bad that's happened, well, that's because of me. If the relationship breaks up, well, my partner was perfect, it was all my fault. There's this claiming of all of the negativity. There's this overinflation of our own influence, but always on the negative side. And we have to come back into a sense of moderacy, where we're able to embrace, we're not over punctuating and overemphasizing the things that go wrong and taking more responsibility for than we should. And we're also beginning to recognize our value and what we do really well, because this is how we start to come back and connect with moderacy. We connect with the idea that it's perfectly okay to be ordinary, because our parent was so busy trying to be special all the time. And so our way of being, we had to take up the other side of special, which was the subhuman worm-like element. And that we can finally come back and embrace moderacy and just being ordinary and normal. And just having a normal life on our own terms, decided by us, regardless of who approves and who doesn't. As long as, of course, it's with moderacy and containment and we're not harming anyone, but we have the right to our own adult life. We have the right to make mistakes of our own and to make our own choices. And that's so important that we start to be able to embrace those things. So we're really, one of the key elements here is we really are making sure that we're not going into that toxic grandiosity, that negative grandiosity, and then juicing off that and using that to perpetuate our victim state, but rather that we are having the courage to, because then what we do is if we do manage to leave our family system, then often we continue to perpetuate the cycle by internalizing a critical inner parent that has very much the same strategies as the narcissistic parent that we grew up with. There's so much more, I guess, that we could say about these things. Again, like I said, some of the symptoms are we become we're overly sensitive, we're over feeling, we become hyper adrenalized, because we grew up in a system that was so unpredictable. Everyone was trying to navigate around one parent. We didn't know what we were going to get. We were waiting for the next attack to come. And so to find peace and stillness in life, that too can be a challenge rather than creating ongoing drama, because unconsciously that's what we're used to. And it's in essence, it's embracing the turbulence of peace, because nothing could be more unpeaceful than peace itself, because there's a weird peace, a weird familiarity in chaos, because we've always known it. It might not be comfortable, but it's familiar. And we have to make the unfamiliar familiar in order to recover. We have to really find a way to connect with our innate sense of enoughness, and we have to surrender the fact that we are never going to get those needs, or it's highly, highly unlikely, unless our parents are doing some active recovery work themselves. We are never going to get our needs met. We are never going to get validated in the way that we want. We're never going to get acknowledged in the way that we want, because that would be too threatening to our parents' fragile, narcissistic ego setup. They just cannot do it. And so we have to come into the reality of our situation. That can require grief. And then we start the journey of reclaiming self and all that involves. We start to identify what our emotional needs are, what are the things that we absolutely love to do regardless of others, and we're putting wonderful, supportive, uplifting people around us. So, challenging, indeed, but so worth it. So worth it to take the journey of recovery and healing. Certainly there are some amazing resources out there, and I would encourage you, if you are the child of an adult, adult child of a narcissist, there's lots of resource and education out there that will help you, lots of guidance, and that you really are finding and sharing with people who are safe, validating, and non-shaming to help you in your recovery, because you are worth it. You absolutely are. And, the world needs to see you. We really want to see you. And even though your parent couldn't do that for you, and I'm so sorry that was the case, the world will welcome you. And all we need now is for you to reach for you. And if you can't quite do that yet, again, that's not a source of shaming. We will all get there in the time we can. So thank you for listening and watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Emergencetraining.com.au, that's where I can be found. I do one-to-one consults, both face-to-face and online. I do public and in-house trainings around people and communicational dynamics. I'm very passionate about sharing insights that can help people have better quality lives. And if you want to support the show, if you haven't already, please go to YouTube, download and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on more episodes. Till then, hope you enjoyed the episode, and all the best. Bye.